Hey guys, welcome back to Skin Anarchy. Today's a very special episode. We're talking about a topic that I think is on the horizon in front of a lot of people right now, and rightfully so, because it's at the center of health at large. And the longevity, we have so much to unpack. And I can't wait to introduce our guest. He is the CEO of Clinique La Prairie and also is, spearheading a longevity movement, I think, that has been grounded in years of research. Please welcome Simone Gibertoni. Welcome, Simone. I'm thrilled to be hosting you.
Same for me, and thank you for having me. Pleasure to be with you.
No, it's truly an honor, and I can't wait to dive in. I really am a fan of what you've been putting out in terms of education around longevity. I follow you on LinkedIn, very your newsletter, and just all of the wonderful insights that you have. And I want to actually start by asking you, where did longevity start for you? When was the first time that you felt this was a topic that needed to be discussed more, or you wanted to dive in further? If you can walk us down memory lane.
I need to go back almost 11 years ago when I started here at the clinic. Of course, the first thing I started to do was to start meeting clients. Mr. Gibertoni, it's amazing. I spent an amazing week at Clinique La Prairie. The reason I come to the clinic is that I come once a year to Clinique La Prairie so I can do whatever I want the rest of the year. So how can I create an ecosystem around my clients, impacting their life? That's why we start to say that really the core of our mission is really be life changers. And at that time, we were talking a lot about anti-age. I wanted to have a process which we can deep dive created here at the clinic. Whoever is approaching longevity should look at this process. We decided to put together a very complete process of longevity, and we decided that the right word to call what we were doing at the time was longevity. I start to register a lot of name related to longevity supplement. I thought this was the future. Not everybody is talking about longevity. We were right 10 years ago. But I think that's a super interesting question because, in fact, I think it's today is the right time to talk about longevity. There are things happening in the last 10 years. First of all, in terms of technology, we have invested a lot, especially in the diagnostic part, and now we start to get also a lot new interesting stuff coming out in the phase of which I call intervention. Then there has been, for me, when they ask me which has been the most incredible discovery in the field of longevity, I'm not talking about the discovery, but I'm talking about the mindset shift, which is this idea that we can have an impact on our health. I did an interview 10 years ago with a genetist, and I was asking her, listen, tell me, how can I live a longer life? You've been lucky and your parents gave to you good gene. Lucky you, you can live a longer life. Otherwise, there is not so much that you can do. Now, with the epigenetic, we know that is exactly the contrary. And recently, I also published this research, which has been published in the UK, 500,000 people, which is confirming to us that it's exactly reverse. 20% of what we are is our gene, 80% is our epigenetics. Our epigenetic is influenced by our lifestyle. So there is a lot that we can do to live not longer, but first to live better. And this is, if you want, the roots of what we do. Then we had, we had the COVID came, and also COVID has been bad for many reasons, but has made people understand that they could do something. They could do something on their health. We were seeing people start to talk about the immune system in Clinique La Prairie. Before, nobody really knew what was the immune system. So everybody started to get into this type of concept up until today, where again we are at the point which it's much more than just the selected few people doing biohacking, but now everybody wants to have this experience of longevity, moving from the simple experience of a traditional holiday to an experience of something which is much more and is able to influence their life and their health. First, understanding the difference between genetic and epigenetic. It's a concept which is quite complicated, which I like to simplifying, saying that your genetic is, if I take a genetic test of you today and in 20 years, that is exactly the same because your genetic doesn't change. Epigenetic is the way you express your gene through your lifestyles. And I always make the example of I have twins myself. So one of the two is eating French fries every day, and the other one is eating salad. One is not sleeping well, the other one is exercising. Despite it's the same genetic, they are going to end, of course, in 10, 15, 20 years into a very different type of vitality and in general health. So basically, it's the base of our philosophy, and we've been the first to introduce to all our guests the epigenetic test, which I believe is a great conversation opener, no? Because now there are some controversy about the epigenetic test, no? Biological age, chronological age, are the tests precise or not? I don't think what is important is to look if these tests are precise, but these tests are a fantastic conversation opener with our clients to make them understand that is what they do every day that can change the trajectory of their health in the long run. We try to simplify. Is made of three very simple steps. The first step is diagnostic, not the assessment. So understanding the way your body works, because superficially we are all the same, but in reality we are very different. The second step is the intervention. So what are we doing in terms of intervention with what we learn in the first phase? Then there is the follow-up, understanding if our intervention is working in the right direction. In the first phase, the assessment, we have sophisticated tests, including genetic, epigenetic, glycans, metabolomics. We have a precise understanding of the way your body works because the intervention must be customized on you. Cannot be a general kind of guidelines or a general intervention. And this is what we do in Clinique La Prairie. Try to personalize as much as we can diagnostic phase and the intervention phase. I think it's a very interesting question. I need to come back to our philosophy because I believe we should move from information to transformation. So the question is how many of these tools that we have are really able to transform our life. I still believe you need a human to change a human. Human contact is very important. We want to create this identity change and this transformation. So coming back to your question, I think that all these tools are interesting, despite we know that a lot of these tools are not working in the long term and not really changing people in the long term. But what I think is important is to have this routine about measuring, doing an intervention, and can be a different level, can be, of course, a Clinique La Prairie, or can be a much more simple level, and then doing the follow-up, because in the long term, we can improve our health. It's all about the routine we introduce in our life, right? Because at the end, it's a game, which is a long game, and consistency is the key to long-term change in our health. Touch on mice, we have to do here is change the life of our clients today, not in the future where maybe we're going to have the magic pill, right? Age, which I don't believe, by the way. Maybe we'll be able to live 150, which I also doubt. Here we are focusing on something that people can impact the life of the people. Because you see, in a place like Clinique La Prairie, there is something which is very funny happening, which is our key measurement is the how many of our clients are coming back to our place, right? You can give them a wonderful stay, a wonderful view on the lake, a wonderful room, but at the end, people are coming back to places like Clinique La Prairie only if there is this life-changing experience that was mentioned to you at the beginning, only if there is efficacy, only if there is a real transformation. So this is what we have to do every day. We have this philosophy which call it 4 pillar because we still believe that the transformation that you were talking about, the roots of the problem must be approached in an holistic way. Medical, nutrition, well-being, and movement. Well-being is super important. As you were talking about inflammation, stress is one of the main driver of inflammation. And we believe the approach should be holistic, have the best doctor. The best way to live longer is not to die of what we call the horsemen, neurodegenerative disease, cancer, cardiovascular disease, metabolic disease. You need doctors helping you this. And then all the other pillars are complementing to go, what you were saying are the roots of the problem. In fact, the assessment is just a phase which serve to customize the intervention phase. And it's the intervention phase that has to go to the root of the problem. I'm sitting now in Switzerland, where there is our headquarters. I think Switzerland is around 3.5% investment in preventive medicine. So the majority of our investment and money we spend in treating the disease. We are going to have 1 billion people more in the next 15 years over 60. Over 50% of people over 60 years old, they have at least one disease. In some countries, this percentage is even much, much higher than this. So we need to have a completely different approach to medicine. What we need to change is having modern medicine with what I call a pro-longevity lifestyle. The problem of today is that we have the modern medicine, which is becoming better and better in treating disease, with, let me again say what you said, pro-inflammatory lifestyle. This mix is catastrophic because we live more, but not in the way we want. This gap between lifespan and healthspan is becoming bigger. It's in average 12 years long. We live in average 12 years, the last 12 years of our life, the incapacity to live full life like we would like to have. So I think also from this point of view, before thinking about living 150, let's try to close this gap. You mentioned mental health. Let's imagine that now I give you 50 years more. What do you do in this 50 years? If you are happy, you are super happy to get 50 years. If you are depressed, I'm not sure that you are happy to live 50 years more. So I think there is a lot to do. We just launched a program which is called Life Reset because we went into this journey from very sophisticated product program, but very functional, focusing on the immune system, focusing on the brain. But then we said to ourselves, we also need to help our clients from a mental state point of view. So I think this is also a very important subject that I don't think we touch enough in the longevity space, which is not only having a longer life, but a life filled with purpose, with joy, with love. Because, by the way, these are also components which are making us living longer. Yeah, listen, the reason I publish a newsletter on this is because this idea of off-label, I just wanted to make some precision on what does it mean off-label, which, of course, the doctor can do it, but for something which must be doctor supervision, very again specific for the clients and specific for a certain clients in exceptional cases. My point is that that's one of the reason why our doctor are there. My point was that again, we cannot, if you have a doctor who is prescribing off-label drugs to everybody, it's not off-label anymore. Right? It's not an exception anymore. So we always like to be very careful in Clinique La Prairie and always remembering that a lot of these drugs, first of all, a lot of people are talking about drugs which are still working with mice like they are perfect for human. That's not true, as there are only 10% in general of the drugs working with the mice which are working as well in human. But my point is always this idea of having doctors following you and personalize whatever is the therapy, personalize the therapies on you. Fantastic tests which are like glycans, which are measuring quite fast the result of the different treatment. And we know that each treatment is working for a group of people and is not working for another group of people. So you cannot give general advice, but personalization is important. I agree with you. And we say, no, do fasting, do cold plunge, do this, do that. We cannot, maybe it's working for 70% of the people, but maybe you are in the 30% that is not working. And now we have the tool to know what is working for your body, because all these tests that we were mentioning, epigenetic, genetic, glycans, metabolomics, done to customize the intervention. So let me go back 1 second to explain why we decided to do holistic health, which is our brand of supplement. So when we were starting to design our ecosystem, we said we need to make other clinics. At that time, 10 years ago, we had only Montreux. We need to follow up our clients physically, because as I told you, I really strongly believe the human component, and like you said, also the competence of the people is so important in longevity journey. We start to build the urban center. We call it Longevity Hub by Clinique La Prairie. We have 5. The last one in Dubai, we opened in Dubai, is amazing. So our client, they can stay 1 week here in Montreux, then they can go in our hub where they find the same philosophy, the same people following them. And then we send technology we can give to our guests and to our clients. And we decided to create Holistic Health, which is our line of supplement, which is putting together, if you want, a lot of our heritage, the science and the experience of CLP, a complex which is called Holistic Health, which is quite unique in the supplement space, produced in Switzerland, focus on longevity, unique distribution. We have a program in Clinique La Prairie focus on holistic health. We created a new type of supplement in the market, and we decided recently to launch a product, which was exactly what you were mentioning, which is called Epinome, with the idea of putting together ingredient able to, let me say, recalibrate the gene expression. So in some way, activate protective pathways that goes from our, what we were saying before, from our genetic to our epigenetic. So in a kind of way to help us to manage epigenetic expression, which, as we said, is so important for our overall health. Yeah, because we have different product in holistic health. They're focused on immunity, resilience, inflammation, cell protection, rejuvenation. So we see it as a kind of really overall program. And we have another program focused on detox, tested better every 2 months. So we build this routine, always testing what is working, testing the weight working, testing in combination of all the other supplement. So we don't want just to sell just for the sake of selling. We started to work on it when we start to deliver epigenetic test with our clients. We have been probably the first clinic in the world to do it. We immediately thought, can we develop with this company, which is not far from us, is in the University of Lausanne, also a product. Imagine it was a journey that lasted almost 5 years. You are totally right. There is a big risk today. We started our conversation talking about word longevity, and I believe there is a big risk now that this word longevity is losing credibility. When they ask, what do you think is the biggest risk of longevity? Is exactly this, is that there is too much pseudoscience, hyperclaim. Longevity must be rooted in science. That's so important. Coming back to your question, the most important part, as you were saying, is consistencies and creating a routine, right? I mentioned the 4 pillar of Clinique La Prairie. I mentioned all the sophisticated tests, but I think there are simple things that we can start doing in our daily life. What is important is to be consistent. Personally, I have 1 hour every morning that I dedicate to, let's say, longevity routine. And what I think is important that we build this space in our life, and we keep this space as a sacred space where we take care of ourselves and our health. Lisa, that's a very interesting question, because now we are opening a clinic. We just opened a clinic in China. We are now opening another clinic in the Middle East. We have next year 2 clinics that we're going to open. One is going to be in Saudi and one in Thailand, in Phuket. How should we just apply 100% the program and the philosophy that we do in Switzerland, or should be so wise to take what is each culture can bring us in terms of longevity and introduce a little bit of this element in this program? And this is what we decided to do. 80% when you are in China is what we do here in Switzerland, but 20% is related to the culture, which in China is very ancient about longevity. And we are going to do the same in Saudi. Also in Middle East, there is incredible culture, and now we call it longevity. There is a lot we can learn. One thing I do since many years that has been a life changer for me is transcendental meditation. And you are from India, so you know the science and study around transcendental meditation. I don't know how many thousand years is old, the right meditation. To buy the pills, which is doing the effect of 20 minutes twice a day of transcendental meditation. And we have hundreds of studies. And then you are absolutely true. And then, right, talking about culture, we also need to say that now everybody is talking about longevity, but the world, unfortunately, is going in a different direction. Longer, unfortunately. In the last year, we are living a little bit less. This gap between lifespan and healthspan is becoming bigger. Drugs, if you take even GLP-1, is telling us that, unfortunately, we need to spread a lot the idea and the philosophy behind longevity, because the world is going in a different direction. I think the risk is that we have hyper claim and a lot of things which are not rooted in science, and people are losing credibility. For example, about supplement, as you probably know, a lot of studies are showing that almost 50% of the supplement in the market are not containing what they claim. This is where credibility is important, where people like you, I was telling you before our call, you are doing an excellent work in spreading all this information rooted in science. It's incredible. This is the right way. We are very niche in what we do. We have very small number of clients, but maybe one day we will come with a brand which is more accessible. We try to talk about longevity as much as we can and spread as much culture, if you want, as possible in terms of longevity. There is a lot to do rooted in science. I think this is the starting point to a serious longevity.
Thank you so much for your kind words. I love everything you're doing and what Clinique La Prairie stands for. You guys are pioneers, and we can learn a lot from that. You have to be a pioneer in this space because there's a lot of room to make redundant stuff. I don't say that in a mean way to anybody out there. I just think that be a little thoughtful. When I look at a brand like Clinique La Prairie, I think this is the most forward thinking approach. You can look up to something like that. I think and there's a lot to learn from that kind of approach. Thank you for sticking to
Thank you
that
very
science forward thing. That's very important. Thank you so much, Simone. This has been amazing talking to you. You have so much knowledge, and I love your newsletters. I read almost every single one. I love that you
you very
educate in this space. Thank you. For everyone listening, if you have any thoughts, feel free to chime in. Let us know what you think about longevity. Thank you so much, Simone. This has been wonderful.
thank you very much.